The last goodbye. I wasn't looking for love, not after the wreckage of my divorce. I was just trying to feel steady again. He found me when I was at my lowest, gentle, patient, like he could hear the cracks in my voice and knew how to hold them together. We lived miles apart, but every night his voice filled the silence of my apartment. He became my anchor, my reason to pick up the phone, my reason to believe that maybe the universe hadn't forgotten me after all. He had a way of speaking, calm, deliberate, as if every word had been waiting all day to meet my ears. And when he laughed, the heaviness in my chest would loosen, just a little. It was the kind of comfort you can't buy, the kind that feels like home even when you're alone. But homes creak, they whisper, they let the wind through the cracks. And sometimes, late in our calls, when his breathing slowed, I thought I heard something else, like a second line humming beneath his. A faint pulse, a rhythm that didn't belong to either of us. Just static, I told myself, the sound of wires crossing, of miles folding in on themselves. But deep down, I knew better. It wasn't the sound of distance, it was the sound of something waiting. And once you hear it, once you notice that undertone, you can't unhear it. It's there forever, sitting behind every word, reminding you that love is never just love. Sometimes it's a shadow wearing a kind face. That was how it began. Innocent, ordinary. Two lonely people on the phone, clinging to each other's voices. But this wasn't a love story. It was a countdown. Then one evening he told me, cancer. The word fell between us like a stone, heavy enough to split the air. He said the treatments weren't working, that his body was tired, that he didn't want to die alone. He wanted me, my voice, to be the last thing he heard. From then on, our nights changed. The calls grew longer, stretching until the gray light of dawn bled into my blinds. I whispered comfort. I whispered love. I told him stories to keep him awake, as though my words could tether him to this world. And I gave myself willingly. I canceled plans. I drifted from friends. Meals went cold on my table while I sat in the dark, clutching my phone like it was an IV line keeping him alive. Every vibration tied me tighter to him until I couldn't tell where my pulse ended and his began. But there were cracks. No hospital visits. No doctor's notes. Sometimes too perfect. Sometimes rehearsed. He described the smell of antiseptic in the ward, then stumble when I asked what the machines looked like. His pain would flare one night, vanish the next. I told myself he was tired. That memory slips when your body is failing. That maybe I was the cruel one for questioning. Because what kind of monster doubts a dying man? Yet the unease kept growing. When he fell silent for a minute, I thought I heard breathing, different from his. Faster, nearer to the receiver. I asked him about it. He laughed it off. Just the TV, he said. Just noise. But the sound stayed with me. A whisper under the wallpaper of our calls, a shadow voice lingering like static with intent. And still, I clung to him. Because love does that. It makes liars into saints and red flags into prayer candles. It blinds you with the hope that maybe, just maybe, you've been chosen. The truth was waiting, though, patient, silent, pressing closer with every word we shared. And when it came, it didn't knock. It bled through the line, cold and final, like a switch flipping in the dark. The night came like a storm you don't see until it's already overhead. His voice was thinner than I'd ever heard it, rasping, fragile, like smoke unraveling in the wind. He said the pain had become too much. He said he was ready. Just stay, he whispered. Don't hang up. Please, I want you to be the last. So I stayed, my body rigid on the edge of the bed, phone pressed tight to my ear. The hours bled together, my voice breaking as I whispered his name again and again, trying to steady him, to anchor him in the dark. I prayed my words could carry him wherever he believed he was going. And then silence. Not the kind that follows sleep. Not the hush of someone drifting. This was different. A silence that ate everything. No breath, no click, no goodbye. Just the hollow dial tones stretching, stretching, until it felt like it would split my skull open. I screamed his name into the void. I begged. I wept until the sheets were damp, until the sun broke through the blinds and turned the night into another kind of cruelty. And then, nothing. No message, no call. His number rang once, then shifted into that cold recorded voice. This user does not exist. His profile was gone, his photos erased. It was as if he had never been. I tore through obituaries, hospital records, veterans' memorial pages, anything that might carry his name. but there was nothing. Not a single trace of the man I had loved, mourned, and stayed awake to bury over the phone. Grief curdled into horror. Because if he hadn't died, if he hadn't been sick at all, then who had I been speaking to? And worse, why had he needed me there, whispering into the dark when the line went dead? The truth didn't free me, it trapped me. I realized I hadn't been holding the hand of a dying man. I had been holding open a door, and something or someone had slipped through. I searched everywhere. Obituaries, local news, social media feeds that never seemed to end, hospitals in its supposed town, veterans groups, nothing. Not a funeral, not a grieving family, not even a passing mention of his name. At first, I told myself the records just hadn't been posted yet. Bureaucracy, delays, some clerical backlog. But days turned into weeks, and the silence became undeniable. He wasn't dead. He was never sick. The realization didn't come like a flash. It settled like ash, drifting and choking, until I could hardly breathe. I had poured my heart into midnight calls with a ghost. My love, my comfort, my grief. All of it had been swallowed by someone who vanished into thin air. And what haunted me most wasn't just the betrayal. It was the precision. Every word he'd chosen, every silence he'd left hanging, all perfectly tuned to keep me tethered, to make me stay. I replayed it endlessly, like a detective combing through tapes. Every pause, every sigh, every whispered promise. And beneath it all, I swore I could still hear it, that faint undertone, the hum, the static, that dial tone bleeding into my sleep, as if the line had never truly gone dead. Friends noticed the change. They asked if I was okay. I lied. I told them I was just tired, and in truth, I was, but not from lack of rest, from carrying the weight of a man who may have never existed, and the gnawing suspicion that the silence he left behind wasn't empty, because silence has a shape. It breathes, it listens, and mine did. Late at night, when the world went quiet, I felt it pressing close. The sense that if I picked up my phone, if I dialed that number that no longer existed, someone or something would answer, and maybe it already had. Now, when my phone rings at night, I hesitate. I let it vibrate in my hand like a living thing, its soundless hum crawling up my arm. Sometimes I let it buzz into silence, afraid of who or what might be waiting on the other end. I tell myself he was just a cruel man playing a role, a predator with a script, feeding on lonely hearts. That's the version I repeat to friends when they ask why I've been so quiet, why I don't date anymore, why my phone stays face down on the table. But some nights, when the dark presses in, that explanation feels like a bedtime story told to a frightened child. Because the silence he left behind doesn't feel empty. It feels patient. It feels aware. I've changed in ways I can't undo. I don't trust easily. I don't pour myself into voices I can't see. Yet part of me, deep down, still strains to hear him, still waits for the soft inhale before he'd speak, the one that always came just before my name. And then sometimes a sound slips through the quiet, a low chime from my phone, a flicker of static, faint but unmistakable, like a line opening somewhere it shouldn't. I freeze. My breath catches. My finger hovers above the screen. And I wonder, what if that silence wasn't just silence? What if someone, somewhere, is still listening? What if I was never the only one on that line at all? If you've been here with me to the end of this story, thank you. If it made you feel something, fear, recognition, maybe even a shiver, hit the like button. It helps more than you know. Subscribe for daily stories like this one and share it with someone who might need to hear it. There's another video recommended for you on the screen right now. Click it and let's go deeper into the shadows together. I'll be back tomorrow with another story waiting on the line. Will you pick up? The Ghosted Mansion. I should have known better. But when someone whispers to you about chandeliers and marble staircases, about family estates soaked in history, it's easy to believe, easy to dream. He told me he was restoring the old place, sent me photographs that looked like postcards from another era. Crystal lights dripping from ceilings, marble staircases coiled like frozen serpents, corridors that stretched forever. He said his family had abandoned it years ago, and he was bringing it back to life. And me, I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe in something beautiful, even if it was held together with dust and lies. The photos burned in my mind like film stills, a golden hallway, a chandelier flickering with promise, the idea of walking beside him through those echoing rooms. It felt like stepping into a dream, where romance and history could meet, where time itself might bend for a night. But here's the thing. Even in dreams, there are cracks, and I caught them. Tiny slips in his stories, little details that didn't quite align. His voice had a static to it, like a radio tune just slightly wrong. And sometimes, when I asked about the house, about his family, about what exactly he was restoring, he'd dodge, laugh, change the subject. I told myself it was nothing, that people get nervous when something matters. But deep down, a part of me already knew. There was a shadow curled up inside the light he was showing me. A wrong note in the music. And when he finally invited me to see the mansion for myself, I didn't hesitate. I drove 3 hours with my heart in my throat, chasing the dream he'd built for me, chasing beauty, even though something in the back of my skull whispered that beauty can rot. I killed the engine and let the silence wrap around me. The air was heavy still. Even the birds seemed to avoid the place. The photos he'd sent me replayed in my mind, mocking me now. Glittering chandeliers, marble floors polished to a mirror shine. But this was a ruin, a corpse of a house left to rot under weight of its own history. I told myself to leave. Just turn around, drive back, forget him. But curiosity, stubborn, ugly curiosity, dug its claws in. What if he was inside? What if the house really was under renovation and I'd just arrived too early before the grand reveal? I grabbed my phone and dialed his number. The line rang, and that's when my stomach turned to stone, because the ringing didn't come from the phone in my hand. It came from the house. From deep inside those boarded windows, muffled and hollow, his ringtone bled through the walls. My throat went dry. I whispered his name into the phone, but no answer came. Just the echo of the ringing, until it cut off, like someone had answered, but no one spoke. I stared at the front door. It sagged under its own weight, a single lock dangling like a useless ornament. And for a second, I swore I saw movement behind one of the upper windows, just a flicker, like a shadow shifting. Fear crawled up my spine, sharp and insistent. I should have driven away. I should have never come. Instead, I stepped out of the car. Gravel crunched under my feet, too loud in the silence. My legs moved against my better judgment, carrying me closer to the door. Every step felt like sinking deeper into quicksand. And then my phone lit up in my hand, an incoming call, his name. But the sound wasn't coming from my phone this time. It was coming from behind the door. I pressed the phone harder to my ear, like that would change anything, like it would force him to speak. But there was only silence, thick, choking silence, except for that cursed ringtone bleeding through the walls of the mansion. It stopped. My screen still said call connected. My breath hitched. And then, faint, almost too soft to hear, a whisper, my name. Drawn out, stretched thin, like someone was dragging it across broken glass. Every hair on my arm stood up. My knees locked. I wanted to run, but my feet rooted into the cracked driveway like I'd grown out of the weeds pushing through the stone. The boards over the windows creaked, just once, a long, low groan, as if something inside was pressing against them, testing their strength. I forced myself to move, stumbling back toward the car. That's when the front door rattled. The lock clanged against the wood, swinging like a loose pendulum, and then it opened. Just a crack. Cold air poured out, air that smelled of dust, wet rot, and something metallic beneath it, like rust or old blood. My phone slipped from my hand and hit the gravel. The call didn't disconnect. The screen glowed against the dirt, his name still there, as if he were right in front of me. I couldn't look away from the gap in the doorway. Blackness sat inside, thick and impenetrable, yet somehow alive. I swore I saw something shift there. Not a person. Not quite. More like a ripple in the dark. A suggestion of movement that didn't belong to anything human. The whisper came again. Louder. Closer. This time not from the phone, not from my ears, but inside my head. Like it had crawled under my skin. I bolted for the car, heart pounding hard enough to split my ribs. My hands shook as I fumbled with the door handle, the urge to vomit rising with every second. Behind me, the mansion groaned. The boards strained against their nails, one popping loose and clattering to the ground. The whisper stretched into laughter, low, wrong, hollow. And then the line went dead, but the doorway stayed open, waiting. The road ahead blurred, my hands strangling the wheel. My pulse was a drumbeat, loud enough to drown the engine. I didn't look back, not really. But the rear view kept dragging my eyes, forcing me to watch as the house folded into the horizon like it was sinking into the earth. That sliver of black, that cracked tooth on the skyline, it felt like it was following me. My phone lay on the passenger seat, the glow of the screen pulsing like a heartbeat. His name still there, active call, but no voice, just the faint hiss of static, like someone breathing against the other end. I hurled it onto the floor, as though distance would sever whatever tether I just stumbled into. The town was 20 minutes away, maybe less. Yet the miles stretched thin, like the road was unraveling under me. I passed a gas station, neon humming, and nearly pulled in, nearly threw myself into the fluorescent safety of other people. But shame held me back. What would I say? That a boarded-up ruin had answered my call? That a whisper knew my name? So I drove home instead, straight into the comfort of familiar streets, where porch lights glowed and dogs barked in fenced yards. The ordinary world. But I wasn't carrying ordinary anymore. I carried that voice, that laugh, that silence that felt like it had eyes. When I finally stumbled through my front door, I locked it, bolted it, drew the curtains tight, and still, the phone buzzed on the floor where I dropped it. One last vibration, weak and final, before the screen went black. For hours, I sat there on the couch, knees pulled up, waiting for the sound to return, waiting for his name to bleed across the glass again. It didn't. But the silence didn't feel empty. It felt patient. That night, I dreamed of the mansion, the boards splitting open, the windows glowing from the inside with that golden light he promised me. Only it wasn't chandeliers burning. It was something else. Something that wanted me to come back. And when I woke, my phone was beside me on the couch, though I swore I'd left it on the floor. He vanished online the next day, profile gone, messages erased, photos deleted, even the text history dissolved like smoke. If I hadn't kept the drive logs and the screenshots, I might have doubted it had ever happened at all. But I know what I saw. I know what I heard. Days passed, then weeks. I went back to my routine, commuting, grocery shopping, answering emails, yet nothing felt solid anymore. Even the sound of my own phone made me flinch. A normal ringtone became a trigger, a small electric needle under my skin. I stopped answering unknown numbers. I stopped scrolling late at night. In a way, I stopped being the person who believed in marble staircases and chandeliers. But the mansion didn't leave me. It seeped into my nights. Sometimes, just as I'm falling asleep, I dream of it. Not the boarded husk, but the version he showed me. Golden halls, crystal light, endless corridors echoing with footsteps that don't belong to me. And in the dream, my phone is always ringing somewhere deeper inside the house, calling me forward. And sometimes late at night, when the neighborhood is quiet and the air presses close, my phone vibrates on the nightstand. No name, just a number I don't recognize. The same hollow chime bleeding through, metallic and wrong, as if it's not coming from the phone at all, but from the walls around me. I never answer. Not anymore. But each time the temptation is there. Because maybe if I did, I'd finally know who or what waited inside that house. Tell me, if you drove 3 hours to meet someone and the house you found called your name instead, would you answer? Thank you for listening to this story. If it gripped you, hit the like button. It helps this channel grow and keeps these stories coming. Subscribe for daily content and share this video with someone who loves a good, unsettling tale. Another video is recommended right now on your screen. Click it if you're ready for the next story. I'll see you back here tomorrow. The Double Life. I started noticing small glitches in his stories. A birthday on a Tuesday that became a Friday when he retold it. A favorite movie he swore we talked about before, but we hadn't. Tiny cracks in a perfectly painted mask. One night scrolling through Facebook, I froze. A tagged photo. It was him, or at least his face. Same crooked smile, same hair falling just above his eyes. But the name wasn't his. The location wasn't his. And the woman next to him wasn't me. She was older, holding 2 kids, her hand resting on his shoulder like it had belonged there for years. I didn't sleep that night. Every message from him replayed in my head, every detail he'd ever shared. Had any of it been real? I went deeper. Reverse image searches, usernames, fragments of text. Every trail led somewhere else. A LinkedIn page for a marketing director in Dallas, a wedding announcement in a small town newspaper. Each one a thread pulled from a sweater until it all unraveled. The next day I asked him about the photo. Just a simple question. Who is she? No accusation, no screaming. My fingers trembled over the keyboard. His reply came minutes later. One word, stop. That was it. Stop. No explanation, no denial. Just a command like I was a child playing too close to an electric fence. The silence that followed was louder than any fight. My phone stayed on the table, screen glowing with our old texts. I kept staring at his profile picture like maybe it would flicker, like a mask slipping, and I'd see who was really there. Days passed, then weeks. His profile disappeared, wiped clean like chalk off a blackboard. But the messages remained in my phone. The jokes, the promises, the confessions. A ghost of a relationship that never existed. And here's the part that still claws at me in the dark. Sometimes, late at night, I get texts from an unknown number. Just 2 words. You found me. I delete them, block them, change my number. But they always find a way back. I used to think catfish stories were harmless. A little heartbreak, a little embarrassment. But when someone builds a world around you, brick by brick, and then rips it away, it's not just heartbreak. It's like waking up in a stranger's house, realizing everything you trusted was furniture staged for a show. If you're listening to this, maybe you're scrolling right now, talking to someone whose face you've never seen, whose hands you've never held. Ask yourself, whose life are you stepping into? And what would they do if you found the truth? Because sometimes the scariest monsters don't hide under the bed. They hide behind the perfect smile in a profile picture. And I told myself it was a misunderstanding. Maybe a cousin, maybe an old friend. But the more I stared at that barbecue photo, the harder it was to breathe. He looked too at home, too practiced in that life. I asked him again, gently this time. He deflected. People post weird things online. Don't believe everything you see. His words were smooth, but my gut churned. That's when the small things became razor sharp. His silences after I asked certain questions. The way he vanished for hours and reappeared with a flood of apologies. The way he slipped and called me by a name that wasn't mine, Anna, then quickly laughed it off. I wanted proof, needed it. So I dug deeper. At work, during breaks, at night under the sheets, my face lit blue by the glow of my phone. His name didn't exist on public records. His photos were sprinkled across forums, sometimes with different names attached. I felt like I was piecing together a puzzle where the edges never lined up. And then came the message. Not from him, at least not directly. An unknown account sent me a screenshot of my own Facebook page. A red circle drawn around my sister's face. The caption, "Pretty family you've got." My blood iced. I confronted him immediately. His reply was calm, almost bored. "Stop digging, just enjoy us." But how do you enjoy someone when your heart is split between craving and dread? I couldn't stop. The harder he tried to smooth it over, the deeper I fell into obsession. My phone turned into a lifeline and a weapon. Every buzz jolted me. Every silence felt like punishment. My friends started noticing the shadows under my eyes, the way I jumped at sudden sounds. They thought it was love. It wasn't love. It was surveillance. And the more I uncovered, the clearer it became. I wasn't the only one living in his story. I was just another page in his double life. The words burned on my screen, searing themselves into me. You were never supposed to find out. It was as if the ground cracked open beneath my feet. Every laugh, every whispered secret, every late night confession I thought was mine alone, all of it was a script. Not love, not even lies worth dressing up. Just a performance, and I was the audience that wandered backstage. I called him. My thumb shook as I pressed the button. Once, twice, again. Finally, the line clicked, but he didn't speak. I heard something instead, a television droning faintly, children's voices in the distance, a woman humming, and then his breathing, heavy, steady, listening. "Say something," I whispered. My voice cracked. "Tell me who you really are." He exhaled, a slow hiss like a snake slithering over dry leaves. "Hang up. Go back to your life, or this gets worse." My chest tightened. Worse? Worse than finding out I've been nothing but a name on his rotation? Worse than learning the man who claimed to love me tucked his kids into bed between our phone calls? I couldn't hang up. Not yet. "Does she know?" I asked, thinking of the woman in the photo, the wedding ring catching sunlight. "Does your wife know what you're doing?" Silence. Then a laugh, low and jagged like broken glass. "You think you're special? You're just another story I tell myself when I'm bored." I froze, phone slick in my hand. Behind him, a child's voice called out, "Dad?" And he muted the line. My stomach twisted so violently I thought I'd be sick. When his voice returned, it was colder than before. "This was never about you. Don't contact me again." The line went dead. I sat there, phone still pressed to my ear, listening to nothing. But the silence wasn't empty. It was full of echoes, the sound of his wife's humming, his children's laughter, his threat, his truth. I had two choices: pretend it never happened, bury it in the dark like a bad dream, or rip the mask off completely and burn what was left. My finger hovered over the keyboard, ready to message his wife, ready to destroy his kingdom of lies. Because one thing was certain: whatever happened next, none of us would ever be the same. The days after felt like walking through fog with a knife tucked under my skin. I went to work, answered emails, laughed at jokes in the break room, but everything was brittle, sharp at the edges. Every time he walked past me in the hallway, my breath hitched. The same crooked smile, the same hands that had typed me promises now holding his daughter's tiny lunchbox. No one knew. Not my friends who teased me about my mystery man. Not his wife who smiled and framed photos on his desk. I carried the truth like a hot coal in my palms, burning but invisible. At night, I'd scroll through our old messages like a detective reviewing case files. His voice still echoed in my head, deep and warm, threading itself through my dreams. Sometimes I'd swear I felt the phone buzz on my nightstand, ghost vibrations, phantom intimacy. I drafted messages to his wife, to my HR department, even to him, paragraphs filled with rage and heartbreak, evidence and screenshots. But I never hit send. Each time, the memory of his hissed warning, "This gets worse," stopped my fingers. What did worse even mean? My sister noticed me withdrawing. "You're not sleeping," she said softly over coffee one morning. "Is it him?" She didn't know who him was, but my silence answered for me. Even my dog sensed it. He wouldn't curl up at the foot of my bed anymore, just sat at the door, staring at nothing, ears flicking like he could hear something I couldn't. The world outside carried on. Birthdays, deadlines, the hum of everyday life. But inside me, everything had shifted. Every man on the train looked like him for a flicker. Every notification on my phone felt like a trapdoor opening. I still had the choice, the nuclear option. Blow up his perfect facade and tell her everything. Expose him. But some nights, staring at that unsent message, a different thought haunted me. What if he already knew where I lived? What if I wasn't just another story to him, but the one who went too far? And then one night, my phone buzzed. No name, no photo, just two words on the screen: "Still here." Weeks turned into months, and his name became a ghost in my phone, buried under new texts, new emails, new numbers. Yet some nights, I still catch myself scrolling to the top of our old thread, staring at that final message like a wound that refuses to close. "You were never supposed to find out. I go out now, meet friends, smile, pretend the world makes sense, but everything feels thinner, like a stage set built of paper. When someone laughs too easily or says 'trust me' too quickly, I feel my stomach knot. I've learned to hear the cracks in people's stories, to see the seams in their masks. I thought I had lost a man. But what I really lost was the ability to believe without proof. The way his voice lingers in certain songs on the radio. The way my hands still tremble when an unknown number flashes on my screen. Those are the stains of his double life. Some nights, I think about sending that message to his wife, blowing everything apart. Other nights, I think about how he's still out there, maybe in another state, another city, weaving the same script with someone new, feeding them promises, calling them by a name that isn't theirs. But mostly, I think about the girl I used to be before him, the one who believed love was a quiet corner in a noisy world. She's gone now, replaced by someone who understands that monsters don't always hide in shadows. Sometimes they smile at you from across a screen. And if you're listening right now, scrolling through your own messages, thinking of someone whose face you've never really seen, ask yourself this: if you found out the person you trusted most was living a double life, would you confront them? Or would you keep the illusion alive just to stay in love a little longer? Thank you for listening to this story. If it resonated with you, give this video a like. It helps more than you know. Subscribe for daily stories like this one and share it with someone who might need the warning. There's another story waiting for you on your screen right now. I'll see you back here tomorrow. The voice on the other end I met her online, not in a glamorous swipe right kind of way, more like the digital alleyways where lonely people wander at 2 a.m. trying to fill the silence with anyone who answers back. She was there, and her laugh, God, that laugh, it was like breaking glass, sharp and dangerous, but addictive. The kind of sound that cuts you a little, but you lean in anyway, wanting more. At first it was casual, a message here, a call there, but soon the nights blurred into one long conversation. Midnight to sunrise, my world collapsed into that tiny rectangle of light, her voice buzzing through my cheap earbuds, while the city outside dozed in its restless dark. I stopped going out with friends, stopped answering my mother's texts. Meals turned cold on the counter while I stayed curled up on my bed, listening. It was like being caught in a spider's web. Each word she spun tightened around me. I told myself it was connection, that this was what people meant when they said they'd found someone who got them. She knew when to pause, when to laugh, when to ask just the right question that made me spill more than I ever meant to. Her voice had a rhythm, like waves, pulling me further from shore. But here's the thing about voices in the night. They don't always belong to who you think. Sometimes, if you listen closely, too closely, you hear something else. Something that doesn't quite fit. A whisper beneath the laughter. A breath that wasn't hers. And once you hear it, you can't unhear it. That's when the crack in the glass began to show. The more we talked, the more she owned me. She told me things no one had ever dared say. Secrets soaked in vulnerability. Promises whispered like they were carved just for me. She'd sigh and tell me I was the only one who understood her. That I was different. That she needed me. And I believed her. I believed every trembling word. But the cracks started to show. Small ones at first, so easy to paint over with hope. A story about her job that didn't match the one she told me the week before. A brother who was suddenly a cousin. A city she claimed to hate one night and love the next. Jagged edges in her words, details that didn't quite fit. I told myself it was nothing. People forget things, people contradict themselves. I wanted to believe, so I did. Then came the night, everything shifted. It was late, the kind of late where even the shadows outside feel heavy. She was laughing at something I'd said, sharp, that glass-shattering laugh of hers, when I heard it, faint, almost buried under the static hum of the call. A second voice, not echo, not feedback. Another voice. And here's the part that curdled my blood. It was whispering the same words she was feeding me, word for word, like a script being read behind her, line by line, rehearsed and repeated. I froze. My chest went tight. She kept talking as if nothing had happened, but suddenly her laugh didn't feel like laughter at all. It felt mechanical, practiced, like a sound effect played at just the right time to keep me hooked. I couldn't shake it. Every time she told me I was special, I imagined some other poor bastard on the other end of a call, hearing the same thing. Each "I miss you" wasn't mine. It was recycled, handed out like candy to whoever picked up. And once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. The messages felt templated, the pauses too perfectly timed, the warmth in her tone, manufactured. I realized with a pit in my gut that I wasn't chosen. I wasn't unique. I was one in a rotation, a faceless name among many, all strung along by the same laugh, the same promises, the same words which from a script none of us were meant to see. And yet, I couldn't let go. Not yet. I confronted her. My chest was a war drum, every beat louder than the last. My throat felt scraped raw, but I forced the words out anyway. Who else are you talking to? Dead air. The kind that makes you wonder if the world has stopped breathing. Then, there it was. That laugh. Shards of glass clattering against my ears. But this time it wasn't sweet, wasn't addictive. It was cruel. Cold. A laugh that said you finally caught on, didn't you? And layered beneath it, almost smothered by the noise, another voice. A man's voice. Whispering, just like before. Only this time, I caught a word. Not just a word. A name. Not mine. That was the moment the bottom dropped out. I slammed my finger against end like I was pulling a trigger, desperate to cut her off, to erase that sound from my head. The phone screen went black, but the line didn't die. The call didn't end. Her voice seeped back through, faint at first, then growing clearer, sharper. It slid into my ear, curling against my bones like smoke. She said my name, but it wasn't her voice anymore. Not the jagged glass laugh, not the smooth warmth that had wrapped around me night after night. No, this was something stretched, warped, like her throat had split into something less than human. My name hissed, pulled thin and long, every syllable bending into hunger. I tore the earbuds out, threw them across the room, but I could still hear her. Not through the phone anymore, not through the wires, through the air, like she was in the room with me. I pressed the power button on my phone. The screen flickered, died, but the voice, her voice, or the thing behind it, kept whispering my name over and over, a chant that burrowed into the marrow of my spine. And then I heard it again. That other voice, the man. Only this time, it was louder, clearer, calling for me. That's when I realized this wasn't just a scam. It wasn't just a rotation of lonely men. It was something else, something that wanted us. And I had just said my name out loud. I yanked the battery from my phone, hands trembling so badly I almost dropped it. My heart was in my throat, thudding like it was trying to escape my chest. The screen went black, the plastic back clattered on the floor. But in the silence of my room, I swore I still heard her, whispering. Not from the phone, from nowhere, from everywhere. I pressed my palms over my ears, but the sound crawled inside anyway. My name, drawn out, chewed through like it tasted good on her tongue. I staggered across the room, every shadow stretching too long, too thin, like the walls themselves were leaning in to listen. I thought about calling someone, anyone. But who? The friends I'd pushed away months ago? The family whose calls I'd silenced for her? They'd laugh. They'd call it paranoia. How do you explain that a laugh can follow you into silence? That a phone call can still be alive when the phone itself is dead? I stayed awake until the sky outside began to pale, knees drawn up on my bed like I could make myself smaller, harder to find. But the whispering never stopped. It sank into the quiet, into the hum of the refrigerator, into the faint hiss of the pipes. And here's the thing that broke me most. I started catching other names. Not just mine. Men's names, called out like a roll sheet in a class I never signed up for. Sometimes the voices overlapped, tangled together like they were all trapped on the same line. Sometimes I even swore I heard sobbing, pleas cutting off before they could finish. That's when I realized I wasn't alone in this. Not in the comforting sense. No, I was part of something larger. A rotation, yes. But not just of lovers or marks, of prey. By the time morning came, I was too scared to sleep, too scared to dream. Because what if the call followed me there too? And worse, what if the next time I opened my eyes, that voice wasn't just in my head? What if it was sitting beside me, waiting for me to answer? And I don't call anymore. Not her, not anyone. My phone sits on the nightstand like a dead insect. Battery out, SIM card snapped in half. I don't answer unknown numbers. I don't even look at the screen when it lights up. But late at night when the house settles and the dark feels too close, I hear it. That laugh, it's softer now, like it's learned how to slip under doors, how to bend around silence. Sometimes it's just a hiss behind the refrigerator's hum. Other times it's right behind my ear, warm and cold at the same time. And sometimes a voice still hisses my name, like the call never ended. I tried to go back to my old life, coffee with friends, scrolling through feeds, pretending this was just another ghost story I told myself. But the truth is, I'm not the same. I've seen the script, heard the whispering chorus of names, and I can't unhear it. When you've been fed on by something you can't explain, you start to wonder if the call was ever coming from outside at all, or if some part of you was always wired to it. Now, every ring I hear, on a stranger's phone in the subway, at the grocery store checkout, on a television show, it prickles my skin. What if it's her? What if it's them? Tell me, if your phone rang right now and you didn't recognize the number, would you answer? Or would you let it ring, knowing some calls don't end even when you hang up? Thank you for staying with me through this story. If it sent a shiver down your spine, do me a favor. Like this video to help it reach more people who love stories like this. Subscribe for daily content. There's another video on your screen right now, waiting to pull you deeper. Share it with someone who could use a story tonight. And as for me, I'll see you back here tomorrow, if the line stays clear. The perfect soldier who never was. You ever meet someone online who feels too perfect? That was me, half lonely, half curious, scrolling a dating site in the dim glow of my phone screen. And there he was, Captain James, an Army officer stationed overseas. His profile wasn't just a page, it was a stage set for my longing heart. The smile, confident but kind. The uniform, heroic, spotless, like something cut straight from a recruitment poster. His words, they had weight. They didn't read like filler lines, copied and pasted into a dozen inboxes. No, he wrote to me like he knew me, like he'd been waiting for me. And I, God help me, I wanted to be waited for. Our first call came late. His voice was steady, a voice that carried authority but softened in my ear, almost cinematic in how it lingered. He told me about desert nights under foreign stars, the quiet of the base, the camaraderie of men who trusted one another with their lives. He painted pictures of a world I had no access to. Sacrifice, duty, honor. Each word was a thread, and before I knew it, he was weaving me into his story. He never missed a night, not once. Midnight calls, dawn messages, photos that looked torn from classified files, him in fatigues, him beside tanks, him with his squad. He made me feel chosen, like I wasn't just another face in the crowd, but the person keeping him tethered to something soft and human in the middle of all that grit. But here's the thing about perfection. It always hums with static. There was a flicker, just a sliver of something off, a pause too long before an answer, a detail about his base that didn't quite fit, the kind of thing your brain registers but your heart politely covers up. I ignored it, I shouldn't have. At first it felt harmless. Can you send me a little money for better Wi-Fi? He asked one night, his voice breaking up on the line, the static almost theatrical. I laughed, told myself it was nothing. Soldiers overseas, of course, they needed good connections. And what was $20 to keep the thread between us alive? But 20 turned into 100, then 1,000. The story shifted like desert wind. An injured comrade who couldn't afford treatment. A wallet stolen on leave. Supplies his unit desperately needed, but somehow couldn't requisition. Each plea wrapped in urgency, dipped in guilt. If you love me, you'll help me. If you care, you'll prove it. The words drilled deep. I told myself I was supporting him, standing by him while the world turned its back. That's what you do for someone who makes you feel chosen. You hold the rope, even when your palms are bleeding. But slowly, his warmth cooled. The man who once spoke like a lighthouse in the dark now sounded mechanical, stripped of tenderness. Sometimes he barked orders instead of sharing confessions. Sometimes he went silent altogether, leaving me staring at a glowing screen, my own reflection staring back, hollow-eyed and waiting. The static I once brushed aside had grown teeth. Details didn't line up. His base shifted locations and stories. His squad members' names changed. And the photos, so perfect, so polished, they began to feel staged, like glossy pages torn from a magazine. I tried to ignore it. I tried to cling to the man who made me feel alive again. But the truth has a way of pressing its thumb on your chest until you can't breathe. Something wasn't right. And soon, I would find out just how wrong it really was. It was past midnight, the kind of hour when silence has teeth. My hands trembled as I dragged one of his photos into the search bar. Just a stupid, desperate impulse. A need to quiet the storm in my chest. The screen blinked, loaded, and then the truth detonated. The same face, the same uniform, but not my soldier. A news article, a tribute page, a man who had died 3 years ago, buried with honors under a flag he would never see wave again. I stared, the blood in my veins turning to ice. The floor seemed to tilt. My soldier, my captain, wasn't a man at all. He was a mask. A patchwork of stolen images, stitched together with words designed to snare lonely hearts like mine. My ears rang with every late-night call, every whispered, "I love you." Now they weren't vows, they were weapons. Lies polished until they gleamed. My phone buzzed, his name glowing like an accusation. I answered, heart slamming against my ribs. His voice came smooth, practiced, asking for money again. Another crisis, another prove you care. I couldn't breathe, my throat locked, my mind screamed. "Who are you?" I whispered. A pause, too long, too sharp. Then the voice shifted, cold, unrecognizable. No warmth, no romance, just irritation, even contempt. "You know who I am," he said, and that was the point. The line between reality and illusion split open. I wasn't in love with a soldier. I wasn't saving a man overseas. I was feeding a ghost, one conjured by someone I'd never meet, someone hiding in the shadows, laughing at how easy it was to hollow me out. And in that instant, every promise, every imagined future shattered like glass. There was no soldier. There never was. I confronted him, the truth boiling in my throat like acid, the words spilled out, accusations, disbelief, the betrayal that cut deeper than I thought possible. His reply came sharp, almost amused in its cruelty. "You're ungrateful. You wasted my time." That was it. No apology, no hesitation, no sign of the warm voice that had once made me feel chosen. Just venom, as if I had wronged him. The line went dead. I blocked him, deleted the chats, erased every photo, every screenshot, every scrap of proof that he had ever seeped into my life. My fingers moved like they were scrubbing blood from my hands. Desperate, frantic, unstoppable. But when the phone went silent, I realized silence wasn't the relief I thought it would be. It was worse. It was the echo of absence, the weight of grief. Grief not for a person, but for the ghost I'd been made to love. A man who never breathed, never fought, never dreamed of me at all. I caught myself reaching for the phone in the nights that followed, muscle memory dragging me toward the void. I missed him. Not the liar, not the faceless predator behind the curtain, but the soldier I had built in my head. The man who whispered to me under foreign stars, who told me I was his anchor, his reason to fight. Friends tried to console me when I confessed. Some laughed, told me I should have known better. Others shook their heads, pity in their eyes. None of them understood. How could they? They hadn't lived inside the story, hadn't felt the drip of affection day after day until it hardened into belief. And beneath the grief was anger. Anger at him, at myself, at the cruel machinery of deception that preyed on people like me, lonely, hopeful human. The world moved on, but I stayed haunted. Not by the man's face, that belonged to a dead hero who deserved better than this theft, but by the voice that had made me believe. A voice that still at them echoed when the house was too quiet. You don't just delete a ghost, you carry it. Now I tell this story with a knot in my chest. Not because I miss him, there was never a him to miss. The soldier, the uniform, the late night calls, the whispered vows, they were scaffolded built around nothing, empty, hollow. What lingers isn't love, but the realization of how fragile we are when hope becomes hunger. Loneliness makes you see what you want to see, and someone somewhere knew exactly how to weaponize that. He wasn't the perfect soldier. He wasn't a soldier at all. He was a mask, a shadow stitched from stolen photographs and sharpened words, hiding a predator who knew exactly which strings to pull. And me, I'm not the same person anymore. There's a scar where the hope used to be, but scars don't just remind you of pain, they remind you of survival. I learned that ghosts walk among us not in graveyards, but in chat windows and glowing screens. They're not there to haunt you. They're there to hollow you out. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder, how many other faces out there are lies waiting to be believed? How many people are falling asleep to voices that don't belong to anyone at all? And here's the part that gnaws at me still. I thought I was talking to a hero. But the real hero? He died 3 years ago under a flag, remembered by people who actually knew him. The perfect soldier never was. So I'll leave you with this. Would you have spotted it? Or would you, like me, have chosen the dream over the static? Thank you for listening and for watching. If this story gripped you, do me a favor, hit that like button. It helps the channel grow and makes sure stories like this reach more people who might need to hear them. Subscribe for daily content and share this video with someone who could benefit from a reminder that not every perfect smile is real. There's another video recommended for you on your screen right now. Go watch it next. And I'll see you back here tomorrow. The girl in the photograph. I'll be honest with you, loneliness makes you see beauty where maybe you shouldn't. That's how it started for me. Her photos, auburn hair, soft eyes, the kind of face that made mornings feel less empty. She sent me one every day like a ritual. My phone lit up, and I lit up with it. The first one came on a Monday, just a smile, nothing more. Tuesday was the same smile, but at a different angle. Wednesday, she was near a window, sunlight catching her hair. Each day a variation, like she was feeding me a careful drip of happiness. I lived in a small apartment on the edge of town, the kind of place where the walls know your secrets. The refrigerator buzzed louder than the street outside. Nights were quiet, too quiet, until her messages came in. The ding of my phone was the only proof that someone, somewhere, thought of me. And still, there was a crack in the glass. She never wanted to video chat. Poor Wi-Fi, she said. Bad lighting. Always a reason, never a face in motion, just stills. And maybe I should have questioned it harder, but when you're starved, you don't ask if the food's poisoned. Once, just once, I thought I heard a shadow in her words. A phrase too rehearsed, like a line said one too many times. My gut told me to press, to ask. But then she sent another photo, eyes soft, lips caught in a smile that looked like it belonged to me alone. And I swallowed the doubt whole. Because the truth is, when you're lonely, you don't just accept the cracks in the glass. You hold them up to the light and call them art. I tried to shake it off. Who doesn't want a little mystery? But the more I asked, the more the excuses piled up. Each time she dodged me, it was like she was building a wall one brick higher. And me, I kept climbing, desperate to peek over. Then came the night I couldn't ignore it anymore. Her latest photo, her smile softer than usual, almost staged. Something about it nagged at me. Heart pounding, I dragged the picture into a reverse image search. What I found hollowed me out. The photo wasn't just some recycled headshot. It was a face on a police database. A missing person. Reported 3 states away. Same auburn hair, same soft eyes, same smile that had me hooked. For a long moment, I couldn't breathe. My chest locked tight, like my own lungs didn't trust the air around me. Every conversation we'd had replayed in my mind, words that now felt rotten under the light. The questions swarmed, buzzing like hornets in my skull. Was she alive? Had someone stolen her face? Was I texting her captor? Or worse, was she messaging me from somewhere she couldn't escape? And still, the phone buzzed. Ding! Another photo. Her on a park bench this time, hair caught in a breeze. Except now, the image didn't soothe me. It chilled me. Because if she was missing, who took that picture? And when? I didn't reply. For hours, I didn't move. Just sat there with my phone on the table like it was a loaded gun. The silence stretched, heavy and suffocating. Then another message. Why aren't you answering? I stared at the screen, sweat beating at my temples. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, but no words came. That's when I noticed something that turned my veins to ice. The timestamp on the photo. It wasn't old. It was today. Someone had sent me a fresh photograph of a girl the world believed was gone. I felt watched. My curtains drawn, my apartment sealed tight, yet I swear the shadows leaned closer, listening. Every ding of my phone now carried weight, not affection but threat. And I knew, with a cold certainty, that whatever this was, it had already burrowed too deep into my life to walk away clean. Then came the night she sent me a new picture. Different outfit, same smile. But this time I had already seen that exact photo on a missing person's poster online. Word for word, pixel for pixel. My stomach dropped like a stone thrown down a well. This wasn't a misunderstanding anymore. Whoever was behind the screen wasn't her. And worse, they wanted me to believe she was still alive, reachable, real. I stared at my phone, hands trembling, sweat slicking my palms. The room felt suddenly smaller, the walls pressing in. Every sound in my apartment sharpened. The hum of the fridge, the tick of the clock, the creak of pipes, as if my senses were turning feral, alert for a predator I couldn't see. Then another message slid onto the screen. Come find me. No emoji, no explanation, just those 3 words. I couldn't breathe. My mind splintered into questions. Where? Why? Was this a trap? But beneath the noise was a heavier thought, one I didn't want to look at directly. What if she was alive? What if this was her only way of reaching out? Another message. A pin dropped on a map, a location on the outskirts of town, an abandoned gas station I'd passed 100 times but never stopped at. My heart pounded so hard I felt it in my teeth. This wasn't a chat anymore. This was an invitation, a dare, a snare. I had to decide. Keep playing along or cut the cord before I got pulled deeper into something I couldn't crawl out of. The phone buzzed again. If you don't come, she dies. That was the moment the floor dropped out from under me. My brain screamed to run, to erase everything, to throw the phone into the river and pretend none of it happened. But my fingers moved on their own, fumbling, frantic. I deleted the account, every message, every photo, fingers numb, heart hammering like I was hiding from something in my own home. And then silence. No more dings, no more words. Just me, alone in my apartment, phone screen black, reflection staring back at me with wide, hollow eyes, knowing I just made a choice I couldn't undo. For a while, I thought I was safe. The silence after deleting her felt like freedom. No more excuses, no more false promises, just quiet. But quiet has a way of turning sinister. It doesn't stay empty, it fills with echoes. Weeks later, a friend sent me a screenshot. "Thought you'd get a kick out of this," he wrote. A dating profile, different name, same photo, same auburn hair, same missing girl's smile. I stared at it until my eyes burned, my stomach clenched, bile rising. It wasn't over. She hadn't vanished with the account I erased. She had multiplied. I started looking, against my better judgment. Reverse searches, forums, online groups trading warnings like ghost stories. And there she was, over and over again. Her face repackaged, her name swapped out, her life recycled as bait. Texas, Oregon, Florida. Each one the same smile, the same softness in the eyes that once fooled me. It spread like a sickness, replicating faster than it could be stopped. And with every profile, my chest tightened, because it wasn't just her photo that haunted me anymore. It was the idea that someone out there, maybe many someones, were still using her, still wearing her skin as a mask to lure others in. I tried to tell people. My friend brushed it off. Scammers, man. That's just the internet. But he hadn't felt the weight of those messages at midnight. He hadn't stared into that smile and thought it was meant for him. Nights grew heavier. Sometimes I swore I heard the faint buzz of a phone vibrating when mine sat dark. Sometimes I caught myself expecting the ding, waiting for her name to flash across my screen again. One night, I dreamt of her. Not in photographs, but standing in my apartment, the same auburn hair, the same soft eyes, whispering, "Why did you stop answering me?" I woke gasping, drenched in sweat. The world moved on, but I didn't. I couldn't, because every time I thought of her, it wasn't just about me anymore. It was about the other men sitting alone in their apartments, thinking they'd found something real. And I knew, deep down, the story wasn't finished, because her face was still out there, and it wasn't done with me yet. Now every time I see an unfamiliar profile picture, a shiver moves through my chest like a cold wind in an empty room. Her face, soft eyes, auburn hair, still stalks me across the internet, scattered like ashes I can't sweep away. I scroll slower now. I question everything. A smile isn't just a smile anymore. It's a warning sign, a red flare in the dark. I've learned to read the scenes where reality splits, where charm hides hooks. That's what's changed in me. I don't trust the glow anymore. And yet, sometimes I still wonder. Maybe she's out there, lost, waiting. Maybe she's alive and no one's listening. Or maybe her smile is just a mask now, worn by whoever wants to lure the next fool. I don't know which truth is worse, that she's gone or that she's still being used. The world didn't end when I hit delete, but something did. Some part of me that wanted to believe in strangers, in connections across the void, in the kindness of a photo sent at dawn. Now it's just caution and static, and the faint taste of metal in my mouth when a notification pings. I still get messages from strangers sometimes, different names, different faces, but every now and then, hidden among them, a flicker of auburn hair, soft eyes, a tilt of a smile so familiar it feels like a whisper crawling under my door. And I can't help it. My thumb hovers. My heart beats out a question I can't answer. Tell me, if someone sent you a photograph tomorrow, would you believe the smile staring back at you? Or would you, like me, wonder what's breathing behind it? Thank you for watching this story. If it gripped you, if it made you look twice at the next notification that pops up on your phone, then take a second to like this video. It helps it reach more people who need to hear it. Subscribe for daily stories like this, and share this video with someone who might be scrolling through their own late-night messages right now. There's another story recommended on your screen. Go ahead and click it. I'll be waiting for you there tomorrow.